All right, so I know I'm a little late to the game on this one, but I just saw the new Child's Play movie, um, and basically I wanted to talk about it. But before I do, I should probably explain my mindset going into it because my mindset was not good. When I first heard they were making another one of these things, I was I was I was on the computer one day. I heard Chucky is I heard Chucky is back, and I read the story, and I'm like, they're making another Child's Play movie, really? Um, I mean, apparently it's the returning director Don Mancini, and Brad Dourif is back as Chucky. It's not a remake; it's the next entry in the series, but they're apparently taking it back to its straight up horror roots. I mean, they wanted to make it scary again. So I was just kind of like, ah, that's nice. I probably won't watch it though. I mean, I've never really been a huge fan of the Child's Play movies, especially after they turn to horror comedies. I mean, they were I don't know. It just seemed to me like they were inferior substitutes to more successful horror comedies like Evil Dead 2 or or Army of Darkness. But but then I heard some of the reviews. I mean critics were saying this is the best in the series. I mean the Child's Play series has never been better than this. It makes a welcome return. So I was like, oh, okay, then I might as well check it out. And upon doing so, I must say that I actually really liked it. This is a very solid horror movie, in my opinion. I mean, Brad Dourif returns to the voice of Chucky, and here's the thing. He's actually kind of scary in this one. I mean, the other ones I didn't really find him that scary. I found him just kind of goofy and laughable. Here he's actually kind of creepy. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this film does basically go back to the horror roots. Although there are still some comedic moments in there, it's basically a straight up horror movie. I mean, it's very atmospheric. Let me explain the plot. The plot is it's set a few years after the end of Child's Play. No, not Child's Play. It's set a few years after the end of Seed of Chucky. It centers on this woman named Nika, who is paralyzed from the waist down. She's in a wheelchair, so she's living with her mother. But then the mother apparently commits suicide. They find a knife wound, and oddly enough, this suicide happened on the same night that they received a package from a mysterious unnamed person, and the package contained a good guy doll. So Nika is all upset. Her sister comes. Actually, a lot of people come to fill this creepy old forest house. It's a house in the middle of the woods. I really like this location. So basically, what happens is Nika's sister comes to the house along with her husband, her daughter, and their live-in nanny. Oh, and a priest, basically to kind of console them and counsel them and whatever. So they get into some conflicts about what to do with the house, what to do with Nika, blah 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 blah. But they ultimately decide to all stay at the house. Actually, on a night that a thunderstorm happens. Thunderstorm knocks out the power, or it doesn't really knock out the power, but it renders them basically incapable of leaving. This thunderstorm is so intense. or it doesn't render him incapable of leaving. It makes it very difficult to leave. So one by one, these people start to get killed off, and anyone who, even people who have not seen the Child's Play movies, knows that it is Chucky who is doing the killing. But what's different about this one is the approach to it. I mean, it is very easy to make a bad serial killer movie, and this is not a bad serial killer movie. I mean, Chucky does not actually talk until about halfway through the movie. I mean, a lot of the scares come from just how well the build-up is done. I mean, there are a lot of slow, creepy shots and slow, creepy sequences. I mean, one particularly memorable one is near the beginning, where everyone in the house is basically sitting down to eat dinner. And you see Chucky's arm. You don't actually see Chucky's full body move. You see his arm pour rat poison into one of the bowls of chili. So it's this solid 5-minute sequence of them eating and talking and whatever. Them eating chili. The camera's panning around. It's focusing on each of their mouths. It's very stylistically intense, the way this dinner scene is shot, and appropriately so, because you know one of these people is going to die. And that's where the suspense comes from. The suspense comes from you, because the film constantly keeps you guessing as to which of these people is going to die. I mean, at first you think it's going to be the husband, and then you think it's going to be the daughter, and then you don't know who it is, because it's basically focusing on all their mouths. It keeps cutting. I mean, the shot basically encompasses just their mouth. It keeps cutting between mouths until at last it's slowly but subtly revealed by a bead of sweat coming down the priest's head, and he excuses himself. He drives away, and then you don't actually see the crash. I mean, something tells me that the fact that you don't see this crash has something to do with the budgetary limitations, because it is a direct-to-video movie. But I think that also kind of increases. I don't really think it serves as a detriment to the film. You won't be going like, oh, this film was too cheap to afford a car crash. I actually like the fact that you don't see the crash. You just see this very dented, very wrecked car as the police show up, and the priest's head is sticking out. And this actually leads to one of the more cartoonish scares. I mean, this scare is oddly self-indulgent compared to how the film had been up to that point. I mean, they lift up the car hood. They take a piece of wreckage off of the priest, and his head falls off, and there's a bunch of blood that squirts out from where his head used to be. So that was Evil Dead or early Peter Jackson style gore right there. I mean, but the thing is, even when the film goes for a very over-the-top scare like that, it does not break the mood. I mean, the mood is always very creepy. The mood is always very foreboding. I mean, this house is lit so. I really liked the atmosphere behind this one. The way the house is lit, the way the shots are set up. It makes this house look really big and empty, and you just do not know what's going to be behind every corner. So yeah, that's where a large part of the success from this film comes. Not really so much from Chucky himself, but from the way the movie handles the scares, the way it handles the creepiness value. So really well done, and And I was actually kind of surprised because Don Mancini, if I'm not mistaken, he did the Stephen King Langoliers miniseries, which is a laughable miniseries. And he also did the first Child's Play, and I think a few other of the Child's Play movies, but I digress. Though the Child's Play movies are silly movies. I mean, they are silly horror movies. This one has its silly moments. It has just enough of Chucky being over the top and scary to appease fans, but the thing is, it never goes too far. At this point, it gets ridiculous. So Brad Dourif as Chucky and how they handle him, it goes just up to there. Because if he goes beyond there, it gets ridiculous. I'm using the Ricardo Montalban analogy. I mean Ricardo Montalban used this visual demonstration to describe how he played Khan. I mean, Brad Dourif kind of does the same thing here, and Don Mancini kind of does the same thing in directing Brad Dourif here, where he goes just far enough. I mean, he doesn't really scream a whole lot, honestly. I mean, he's very quiet and growling like this. And I mean, you can tell that he has an agenda at this point. And that's another thing I like about this one, is that he's not trying to transfer into anyone's soul. I mean, he has a I won't spoil it, but he has a personal vendetta against the people in this house, which you find out more about later. And this vendetta leads him to want to kill everyone in this house. He does not want to steal the souls of anyone in this house. He just wants to kill everyone here. So the fact that it wasn't relying on the same plot thread, I actually found pretty refreshing. What else? The acting. Brad Dourif, like I said before, is still a lot of fun as Chucky. I mean, this time around he's actually fairly creepy. I mean, he's not like terrifying. He's not. I mean, because it's still the same character. It's still Brad Dourif's angry voice coming out of a doll. Not that I'm saying that Chucky is anywhere near the villain that Khan is. I mean, Khan is one of the greatest screen villains of all time. What I'm saying is that because of the way they handle him in this film, I found Chucky to be more effective here than he was in any of the other movies. Another reason this movie succeeds is the addition of Fiona Dourif. My God, is she great in this movie? She is fantastic. She basically plays the leading lady. She plays the typical last woman standing that has since become a horror cliche. But the thing is, some people might call nepotism on this movie. Let me put it this way. If After Earth was Hollywood nepotism done extremely wrong, like at its worst, then Child's Play is near the opposite end of that spectrum. This is not like when Jaden Smith outright sucked as the lead in After Earth. Granted, everyone sucked in After Earth, but I digress. Fiona Dourif is a genuinely talented adult actress who completely owns this movie. I was looking at her and I'm like, has she been in anything else? Because I haven't seen her in anything else. I mean, I looked up what she's been in, and basically her biggest role to date, I think, has been a minor character on True Blood. So So she's still, let's just say she has not been in as many movies, and she is not as well known as maybe some other actresses of her age. I mean, she's certainly not as well known as Anne Hathaway. But the thing with Fiona Dourif in this one, she's very. I just think she's edgy in this movie. She's edgy, but at the same time, she's believable as this as essentially a victim of circumstance. She's crippled. She's in a wheelchair, but that has to do with a twist that involves Chucky later in the movie, and her frustration and subsequent working past her disability is a big part of what makes her so interesting as a character. I mean, she is not one of those teen horror leads where you could not care any less about her. No, she is genuinely likable in this movie. And honestly, I would like to see her in more movies, to be honest. I mean, she has proven herself to be a capable lead. She has the right amount of screen presence. She certainly has talent in the way of acting. But yeah, she's very good. She's in fact, like I said, she is one of a few reasons why this movie is as enjoyable as it is. Who else? The chick who played the sister, Nika's sister. She kind of looks like Gillian Anderson, but she's not Gillian Anderson. She's Danielle Biscuiti. I know I'm getting her name wrong. I'm sorry. But she's all right. But given what she had to work with, I'm not really all that surprised that she's just all right. I mean, she is one of the not she, but her character, and a subplot involving her character is one of the low points of the movie, and I'll get to that in a second. But she's fine. She's nowhere near as good as Fiona Dourif, but she's good. She's not bad, but again, a large part of it has to do with the way her character is written. Her character is written very two-dimensionally, very obnoxiously. So I found it really hard to get behind her as far as investment. I was constantly like, okay, why should I care about you? Because I don't. Who else? The guy who played her husband is kind of on that same boat where he's okay, but the writing limits his likability. Same with the live-in nanny. I mean, I'll just tell you the subplot outright. There's a subplot involving the sister having an affair with the live-in nanny, and the husband finding out about it, and there's a short little conflict about that. I thought that came totally out of left field. There was no setup to it. Actually, there was one line to set that up. And I'm not even sure you can call it a setup, because in all honesty, it's kind of vague. But for the most part, I thought that came totally out of left field. It was not needed in the movie. I mean, I did not like that subplot. It was, it just served to diminish what could have been fairly likable supporting characters, but instead these characters are going behind each other's backs. They are plotting against each other. They are being very obnoxious to each other, and I wasn't down with that. I wasn't supportive of these characters. I did not care if these characters died. I was actually rooting for them to die, but other characters I hoped would not die. The little girl, I'm blanking on her name, but of course it's a Child's Play movie, so we have to have a child somewhere in there. Um, the little girl, the daughter, she's she's actually decent. I mean, when I heard they were putting a kid in here, I was just like, okay, this very rarely works. I mean, when they put Alex Vincent in the Andy role for for the first Child's Play, honestly, I thought he was really terrible. I mean, he was so blank, he was so lifeless. He was, I mean, you could tell he had no acting experience. Um he had no charisma in that movie. But the thing with Alex Vincent is that he got better in Child's Play 2. I mean, Child's Play 2, he was a lot better. But again, I digress. What other horrible examples? That horrible little kid they got to play the son in the Shining miniseries, the Stephen King Shining miniseries, which Stephen King made supposedly in retaliation for the Stanley Kubrick Shining with Jack Nicholson. This little girl in the movie is, it's not, she's no Haley Joel Osment or anything like that, but she is actually surprisingly decent. I mean, I did not want her to die. I mean, I know that's kind of a weird compliment, but she felt fairly natural. She was I mean, she wasn't really giving wooden line readings. I mean, she was basically reading them, like I said, very naturally. She was reading them like a little girl would read them. Granted, I'm not, I don't really know how a little girl would react to having an evil potty mouthed doll telling them what to do, but I don't know. I just thought she was I just thought she was solid. I thought she was decent. I also really like the music for this movie. I mean this music actually adds a lot of energy to the movie, and the music, I think it has a nice beat to it when it ramps up, and when it ramps back down, it's very almost creepy in how innocent it sounds. I mean, it sounds kind of eerily innocent when it's just getting a shot of the house, or when it's building up to a scare. So I thought the music was very easy on the ears. As I said before, a lot of where this movie succeeds is in how it handles the concept. Also, like I said before, this film is very atmospheric. Like I said, Chucky does not actually get up and walk around and start acting all crazy until about halfway through the movie. Some people might be a little off-put by that, because he's essentially been the protagonist and he's been walking from the beginning in some of the previous Child's Play movies. But here he basically stays inanimate, and that's where I think this film succeeds in, and where the first Child's Play movie failed. I don't think the first Child's Play movie is necessarily a terrible movie, but the thing is, for a while it was setting up the creep factor of just this doll sitting there while these murders are going on. I mean, obviously you know that the doll is doing it, but the suspense comes from the fact that you do not see the doll move. I mean that's where the creepiness comes in, and this film goes back to that formula, and where the first one kind of lost me is when Chucky started talking. Immediately, that tension was broken. I mean, it just got so crazy, and it just got so stupid. it got so wrapped up in seeing Brad Dourif, in seeing this doll with the voice of a potty mouth Brad Dourif running around cursing at people, killing them in the most over the top way. That I thought it lost a lot of the suspense that it had built up in the first act. So that's the problem I have with the first one. And the thing is, when Chucky finally does reveal himself in this one, the fact that they keep a lid on him for most of the time, the fact that they do allow him to curse, they allow him to be scary, they allow crazy Brad Dourif in there. It never gets to be too cartoonish. It never breaks the tension. I mean, yeah, obviously the movie builds up, and moves along at a faster pace once Chucky starts walking around. But the thing is, it never gets too ridiculous. It picks a tone, it sticks with the tone all the way through the movie, even when Chucky starts talking. That's what I'm basically saying. And one final thing I would like to say about this movie is that the cameos were fun. I like these cameos. I mean, they do really come out of nowhere, but they're just really fun. If I was to take my usual pickaxe to this movie, I would actually say these scenes could be cut, because they are just sort of stuck at the end of the movie. But they do basically reveal important plot elements that perhaps would be missing if they were cut. But anyway. The first cameo is by Jennifer Tilly as Chucky's girlfriend. She's human again, and when Chucky is confiscated by the police, before this officer in his car can actually figure out what's going on, when he sees the bag moving up and down with Chucky breathing inside the evidence bag. Before he can actually figure out what's going on, Jennifer Tilly comes out of nowhere from the back seat and just slits the guy's throat and just laughs maniacally. And she's like, "Where to next?" And that was a good twist. It wasn't completely. It made sense. It made sense that Chucky's girlfriend would send him to these places and help him tie up some loose ends. And the second cameo I really like, just because of how the person in this cameo handles his cameo, is a cameo by Alex Vincent, who played Andy in the first two Child's Play movies. He's all grown up now, and he's living in this apartment, and he gets a package with Chucky inside, and Chucky cuts open the box. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get Andy now." But before he can even get out of the box, before he can make any type of move against the person he wants to kill, Andy points a shotgun in his face, and the movie ends with presumably Andy blowing his head off. So that was granted, that doesn't really stick with the tone of the rest of the movie, because it is a pretty cartoonish moment, but I still liked it. Just for the sake of me getting a kick out of it, I really liked the cameo by Alex Vincent. I thought it was I don't know, it made me laugh. So yeah, that's Curse of Chucky. Without thinking too hard about it, I think it is the best of the Child's Play movies. In my opinion, that's somewhat of a low bar to set. It has a consistently creepy tone. It has a very foreboding atmosphere that works. It allows just enough over the top Chucky fun while balancing that with the more serious serial killer aspect of him. The acting is actually pretty good, especially from the two leads, Brad Dourif and Fiona Dourif. And yeah, I just think it's a perfectly good horror flick.